Okay, so yesterday we looked at databases, right? And we said that basically that database is an electronic means of storing data for easier manipulation. So by manipulation here, we simply meant crude, right? Where we can either create, we can either read from it, or we can update, or we can delete, depending on what manner of or what type of manipulation that we are looking at. But basically, this is like a summary of what the manipulation that we mean here. And we said that we have a different types of databases. One of them is relational database, the most commonly used one, right? These are the most commonly used ones as most info as majority of the informations are usually stored in a tabular form, right? So that's why that relational database is one of the most commonly used database. And then we looked at NoSQL and OO database, that's object-oriented databases, right? And these ones have their own special use cases, but majority of the times you will likely use this particular database, right? Which actually stores things in a tabular form. I mean, yeah, which actually stores things in a tabular form. So it's similar to spreadsheets, but it's not actually spreadsheet because there are some fantastic features that a database has that spreadsheet can never have, right? That spreadsheet can never have, right? And then we looked at the types of database that can be considered as relational database. We looked at MySQL, we looked at PostgreSQL, we looked at SQLite, and and all of these databases understands one particular syntax, which is the SQL syntax, uh, structured query language. Okay, and we also said that in due to development that we don't necessarily need to migrate from our Python language to start writing SQL, right? Being that all this mine or all these databases here only understands SQL. But then we can make use of a technique called ORM, object relational mapping, where we can map a class to a table in a database, or where a class can be represented as a table in a database, and the attribute of those class can be considered as the columns in that database, right? I think that's what we said in our previous class, and we said that this technique can be achieved using several softwares or built-in models or packages in Python. So I think every language has their own packages which you can which you can carry out this ORM using that particular language. Okay, because we a lot of development has come into programming, and people don't really want to migrate to writing SQL. So these softwares come in handy where you don't want to actually do that. And so one of them is SQL model and the other one is SQL Alchemy. I would say that these two models are are, are not framework dependent compared to Django ORM. Django ORM is Django specific, so it requires Django framework for that particular ORM to do what to work. But this other two is framework independent, right? They are framework independent. So basically means that we can use them in any Python script and they will still work, right? As far as we understand how that mapping works, how we will map a class from Python to know what to represent a table in SQL, right? A table in a database. So and then among these two, we said that that SQL model is lighter compared to SQL Alchemy, even though this SQL model is built on top of SQL Alchemy, right? So you see, it simply means that even if we'll be using this, we still need to do what to install this, right? Okay, so that's basically that, and we did that installation. We did that installation, and then we made some progress, right? We made some progress, and what we also did again in our previous class was we established the fact that in order to manipulate things, because remember that database is what is basically an electronic means of storing data. So it's a more convenient and more recommended and a more better way of storing information compared to what to files, right? Files it always have a problem of memory inconsistency, right? So there are some times that you open a file and then the things that you've saved, let's say about a year ago or thereabout, is nowhere to be found. So things, so many things can go wrong while using files. So that is why what database is what is recommended. And then we said that in order to manipulate this data, because that's the whole point of storing this data there. In order to manipulate them, right, that this data needs to be stored in a table, right? So that means that before we store any data, we have to what we have to create a table first, right, in an existing database, because a table can't just be created anywhere, right? So there have to be a database that exists somewhere, and then we do what we simply create tables in that database, right? Which in this case, we're looking at SQLite at this point, right? So this database has to exist, and then what to do, what we simply create tables, which we looked at how tables was created. And because we are using a technique called ORM, we won't we wouldn't necessarily go to what to write the SQL query or the SQL command for creating tables. So what do? We create a class, and that class will be represented as as a table in the actual database, right? So so we went ahead and we created that those tables, but then before this technique is able to do what to proceed to writing that SQL query to do what to write to create this table, the database connection what must have been established, right? Which in this case, this is where that connection was established, right? And this is where our tables was created, right? So, so a class like this, a Python class like this, what will represent what an actual table in the database, okay? An actual table in the database. And before this command can be executed, or this mapping can be carried out, remember the connection needs to be established, and then finally the command for doing what for creating those tables is now what is now this command that say, where are we? Let me cancel this one. I think this one is twice. So the command that we need in creating that is what is simply this command that says create table, which is available in the utils. So basically, what happens is that since we are making use of one of the package, one of the Python package for this ORM technique, which is SQL. Now that package says that in order for it to understand that it is time to start creating those tables, that we make use of that we make use of this command called create all, and this create all would in turn proceed to creating all the required table that we want, right? All the required table. So basically, what this command here does is that it will go through your entire project and then find every classes that inherits from SQL model. Now, all these classes will be considered as a table, and then the mapping or the SQL command would now be written behind the scene, and this table would be created within that database, right? And then I think that was basically where we stopped, right? That was basically where we stopped, right? So we were supposed to look at how to now start the manipulation, since relational databases, in order to manipulate data or tables must be available. So the manipulation can either be adding something to a table, retrieving something from a table, updating something in a table, or deleting something from the table. So that means the table needs to be there first, right? So it moves from the connection to database to creating of table, and then what to the manipulation. Do you have question before we proceed? Question before we proceed? Yes, Mr. Gabriel.
Boss, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I was actually checking something yesterday, and the process I saw that this utils is used for, like, for them is used for um kind of storing of passwords. That's password hashing and reading users JSON. So I don't know if we can actually be changing it here anytime we want, or is something that is
Yes. No.
constant.
This file structure is basically programmer dependent, right? You choose how you want to structure your file. You choose what each file is doing, right? So just because I'm saying that this util should hold functions that basically function that are not dependencies, like this function here, right? Doesn't really mean that someone else will do what will also come up with this same structure and then choose about that these functions should not be or this file should be called function files, right? So the naming doesn't really matter. It's you as the developer that knows what each file is doing and how you want to structure each file. The whole point is that when you need to use something, you should be able to you should be able to find where that thing is and call it to a particular file that you intend to use that thing. The namings of this file, the structure of this files is is completely programmer dependent. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. I
Yeah.
understand that.
So yeah, but then those that hashing of password and those verification of password will still come in here because those are functions that are not uh dependencies, right? So basically any function that is not a dependency, but you will likely be reusing it over and over again. Then I'll just put it there, right? I just create it. I just put it in this file. So that's hashing of password. That function will still come in here. Okay. So this is just like the beginning of this file. That this is just like the beginning of that file. Any other question? Any other question? All right. Okay. All right. So in the absence of any other question, let us see some manipulations. Right. Let's see how manipulations can be done. So by manipulation, I'm simply and what I'm simply referring to what to crude manipulation, right? So crude, right? So either we are adding something. Okay. So let me just write it down here. So the manipulation that we'll be doing is the manipulation that we'll be doing is either we are adding something to a table, right? Or we are doing what we are retrieving something from a table. Remember, everything works with a table because all this manipulation cannot work any other place than a table. So this retrieving here can come in many aspects, right? It can either come in a sense that I am retrieving, let's say I am retrieving one thing at a time. Like I say, one thing at a time, one item. I'll call it one item at a time, or I am retrieving than more than one item. Right. So basically that's how I want to group that retrieving. So you can see how that can be done. And another thing again that we want to look at is updating item in a table. Updating something in a table. And then we're finally deleting something from a table. So I think that basically covers all manipulation. So every other manipulation that you likely do will fall within any of these what category. So it's either you're adding or you're retrieving or you're updating or you're deleting. Right? That's basically all the categories, right? That's basically all the categories. Okay. So now how do we do this? How do we add things to how do we add things to 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 tables, right? So adding of things to table is that you basically create the instance of that table, right? So we basically reading is the retrieving, right? So if you are reading, you are retrieving something, right? So that's basically what that reading is. That's basically what that retrieving there stands for. So reading and retrieving is the same thing, right? Okay, so adding up something to the table. How do you add something to the table? So to add something to the table, what we simply create the instance of that table. So let me put this comment here. You simply what create. So this particular function here is a function that should add something to a table. In this case, what table? The table of user. This is our table here, right? This is our table here. And you know that that the fact that we did not actually specify every other field as optional, it means that they become compulsory. So it means that I cannot add an item if first name, last name, email, and password is not available. Am I making sense? So I cannot add I cannot add that record to that table if first name, last name, email, and password is not available. Because what by default, if you don't specify that this items should be optional, then they become what? They become required, right? They become required. So this is the only optional something here, which because we've set it as primary key, right? It's something that happened in SQL because I've set that this particular column as primary key. What happens is that even if it's optional as it is there, right? Um, if you don't pass in if you don't pass in any value, and which we're not planning on passing in any value, SQL model will automatically populate that particular column in an increasing number, right? In an increasing number, in a way that number doesn't repeat itself, right? So that's basically what will happen, which is fine, which is basically what we want. So let's go back again and let's see how you can add something to that table. So to add something to the table, we go to CRUD. So to add something to the table, we simply do what? We simply create the instance of the table. Instance of the table. So it's similar to what to me saying create the instance of what of a class. So basically means invoke that class, right? So if something happens, create the instance of the table simply means invoke that table, right? Where is that? Where the table again? Uh, invoke this table, which in this case what would be a user table, right? So invoke that user table, and then since you're adding something to the table, you do what you create the instance of this table with the values for the table attribute for the table columns, right? So by column, I simply means the table what I the class attribute. So this is basically what I mean by column: the first name, the last name, the email, and the password. In Python programming, those things there are some as class attributes. But we move from but if you look at it with the concept of ORM, those are what those are actual table columns, right? So here we are saying we should have a column ID, a column first name, a column last name, a column email, and a column password, where each of these columns has their own specific or has their required data type. So that means a first name cannot be integer or thereabout. Okay, so that is how it is, right? In the concept of ORM, but in the concept of pure Python, those are what class attributes, right? Those are class attributes. Okay, so let's go and continue. All right, so this is me. So this was what we did yesterday. Well, let me not clean this up, right? So now it says that in order to create or add something to a table, you know what? We simply create. Okay, let's put say something. To add record to table, right? So when it comes to databases, you start hearing something like record. So record is basically means to add a single complete value for each column, right? A single complete value for each column is known as record, right? So basically the rows, right? The rows, one row is one record, and second row is another record, and so on and so forth. So rows are records, right? Rows are records. Okay, so to add a record to a table, you do what? You create the instance of that table, right? Sorry, you create the instance of that table. So you do what? You create the instance of the table. So let's go ahead and do this. So here, the table here is what is user, which I've imported it down here, right? So you have to bring that class down because you need to do what? Create the instance of that class or of that table. So I have to import it from model dot user management. Okay. So come here and do what and say user, right? And then do what I invoke, right? And then within this invocation, remember, since you're adding, you need to do what you need to provide the values for each of the table column, right? So if you look at that, okay, I copied it down here, right? So this is the only required column. So if I take this man out, these are the only required columns, right? So which is first name. So that means I have to come here and copy the first name and come here too, right? And provide the value for first name. So the same thing happen again. I copy the last name, come here, give the value of, last name, come here, give the value of last name. I said same thing again. Email, come here, give the value of email. Come here again, the value of what? Password, which in this case is supposed to be the hash version of that password, right? But basically, that is what we will do, what we'll be doing, right? So that's basically how record is being added, okay? But then, what will now be the values of first name, last name, email, and password? Now the values of first name, last name, email, and password is going is going to be what the values that was submitted to the what to the route. So basically, if you go back to the route, let's go back to the route again. Go to route. So I'm trying to take it as fast as possible, okay, so that you don't get lost. So if you go back to route again, so that value is what is seen in this register, right? It's seen in that register. And then if you look at, remember, this register here is from where the schema. So if you go to the schema, please, if I'm confusing one, please do not hesitate to raise that or unmute and ask question, please. Unmute and ask. Don't even raise that, just unmute and ask the question, right? So please, because I want us to be on the same page. So this is our schema. For receiving that data as what as structured data in the response body. Remember, if you want to collect a structured data in response body, remember that data needs to pass through what the pedantic class, which in this case this is our pedantic class, and we are now saying that whatever is coming in should be seen or should be violated by that pedantic class here, right? So I imported that man there from, remember, from schema user management, bring in what the register, right? And then from there, when a post request is made to account slash register, we collect that structured data in the response body, right? And it can be found in this variable called reg, right? And then here and then this other part here is what is the session. Remember, in a previous slide, we said that that session is the model or the function that is responsible for allowing us to do what to interact. And by interact, I simply means what to manipulate. So because we are going to add something to the table, which is what a part of manipulation. So it means that we need that session to be open. So this session here is what is passed as dependency. So that when the request comes, it automatically open up that session so that the opened version of that session can be found in this variable called session, so that this session alongside with this user registration, right, can be bundled and sent as value to the create user function. Now, where is that create user function? That create user function is what is available here. Create user function, where we are saying that if you want to invoke this function, you do what you pass the data alongside with the session, which is exactly what is happening here. So we invoke that function, and we pass the data as rec, and then we pass the session as session. Do you understand up to that point? Should I go over it again? Do you understand up to that point? Please, just communicate now, please. Do you
Please
understand
go
up
over.
to that point? Sorry?
Please go over again.
Okay. All right. So let's go over this again. Okay. So first of all, let me put down some notes again so that it helps us in navigating these things. All right. So this is basically what happens was, so when the client send request, right? They send request. When the client sends request, right? This request can come in with any parameter, right? It could be query, it could be path, it could be body, right? So remember, if you're using body, that body needs to be by pedantic, right? So from there, this request is what is sent to a route in our server, right? It's sent to a route in our server, right? And from that route, a response depending on the route, right? So depending on the route, we can likely do what interact with database, interact with uh, database, right? So this particular interaction what is optional. So it depends on it depends on the route itself. So there's some route that doesn't really need to communicate with database, right? But if this particular one does, then of course we do what we interact. So from the request to the route, and from the route we can either interact with database, and then finally you can do what we can send out the response. So send out response, right? Response. So let's see. Okay, so now where is this request coming from? It's coming from our postman, right? It's coming from our postman. So when we go to postman and then we make that request goes straight to what, to a route. So now in this case, this particular request here, and where is our route? And where is our route? Our route is located in the route folder, right? So if let me close up this folder so it doesn't complicate us, right? So where is our route exactly? Our route. So that means where the request comes, this request goes through straight to what, to our route folder. This folder here, this folder that I have open here now, right? So now it goes to that specific route, which in this case, that route is what is account slash register, right? And then because that route comes in, and this route has a dependency, so it means that dependency is what will fire up first, right? And this route too is also expecting what, something in the request body. Remember, we have a pedantic type there, right? A pedantic class there called register. And once we have a pedantic class, or we have a pedantic class as a type in the function argument, because what, it becomes a parameter of what of it becomes a body parameter, right? It becomes a body parameter. So it means that whoever is sending a request to this route called account slash register needs to do what, send in a JSON form that must confirm, or that must match with this particular specification, right? So if I'm sending in a JSON structure, that JSON structure must conform to what, to this specification, where there must be a first name, and the value of a first name must be string, last name string, email must be email, and then password must be a string, right? So now once that structure has conformed to this, right, then that request can come through to the route, which in this case account slash register, right? And because account slash register is also have a dependency. So what happens? That dependency gets fired, right? That dependency gets fired, which in this case, this dependency is what is get session. And where is get session located? If you look at it up here, get session is located in where, in dot dependency, right? So if you go to dot dependency, so this is that file. This is what they get session, right? And then we said that this get session is basically what, like a platform or a medium of interacting with database. Now, why do we need this session? Because that particular route is meant to add something to the database. So that means there's going to be an interaction. So as such, we make a dependency to call on this function. So basically, when this function is being called upon, what happens is that this session here is a special SQL model object that allows, or that creates room for that interaction. Then that session is being created and is being sent out to the route that asks for that dependency, which in this case this particular route here, right? So we get the open section in this variable called session, and we get the structured data that came in with that response with the post request in the rec variable there, right? And then what do we now do? Usually we will have just write everything here, right? In this, we will just here and add it to database. But we don't want to do to add it to that like we don't want to write every code here, right? Because if you write everything here, it becomes the API file becomes messy, right? So you want to move all interaction to another point in our project, right? So in this case, we do what, we come here and we say add user or that add reg details to database, right? To the database, which in this case, this is what we are trying to do. But we don't want to put that logic in this route like where it is now, right? So now what do? We now create another folder called CRUD. And then in this folder, we create a function that we can invoke that function. So that instead of writing the entire code here, I can simply invoke the function that add user to database. So and that function is what is called a create user function, right? That function is called create user function, which is what we just come here and we've created. And we are saying that in order to invoke this function, right? Because since this function is meant to add user details to database. So what do we really need to make this function to be effective? It means that we need the open session for the database interaction and the data that needs to be added to that database. So that's what I'm saying, that here this function will collect the data and the session, and we use that data and session within what is our function to add it to database. And then at the end of it all, we can do what we can send out that response. So here I'm saying, since that function is taken in, since this function is taken in, the first thing is taken in what is the data, and the other thing what is session. So that means when invoking it here in the route, the first thing that you must pass is what should be the data, which is what is rec. And then the second thing is what is session, which in this case is what we've just passed in there. Now, once we pass in those two things and invoke this create user function, this create user function here, which stays in the CRUD, because we don't want to write that whole logic of adding things to database in the router files, right? So you want to have it somewhere else. So once we invoke that function with these required things, the user rec details and the session, those two things will be carried, and we do what, and we use it and do one and add the things within this particular function here, right? So the adding of that thing to that database will happen here, and then at the end of it, or we can do what we can choose to do what to send out a specific part of that response. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Any other question? Any other question? All right. So the silence means that there's not a question. Okay, let's fine. That's fine. Let's continue. Right. Let's continue. Okay. So now that we've collected the data and session from where, from the route, right? Because that where it's coming from, right? The data and what an exception from the route, right? So once we've collected that, so that means the data in that first name, last name, email, and password is available in this data object. It's available in that data object. But if I can show you that. So let me just comment on this out first. Right? Let me comment on this out first. Let's comment on this out first. Right, and then let me just go ahead and do and print this data, right? And print the data, right? And then let's go ahead and let's test this route. So I still have my Postman open, and I still have my structured data available. So I have my first name, I have my last name, I have my email, I have my password, right? So basically now, what do I want to do? I want to come here and do what, and just send that post request. So let's see what's happening. Let's see what's happening. So if I should scroll, okay, hold on. Right. So okay, let me refresh this server. This server has been on since previous class. Right, so it's saying that okay, sorry, we still have some bugs on. So let me clean this man out. So we have some notes that we put down here. Let me comment on this, and let's go back and let's make some requests. Right. So if I send again, okay, I think my server is still down. Server is coming up. It's taking time, but it's coming up. All right. So if I should start send this request again, okay, and then if I should go to my this thing, so what do you see? Now look at what we are seeing, right? Look at what we have at that data, right? So we're having first name equals to test. So that's basically what the data that was sent in and what we've collected. And that print is coming from this function that says. So basically, what happened is that this request came in here, right? And then that data and this session was passed to this function, and this function was invoked. So this as this function was invoked, the only thing that this function did was to print that data, which is what we are seeing here, right? Which is what we are seeing there. Are you following up to that point? Have we followed up to that point?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now that we have that data there, but then if you look at that data closely, right? If you look at that data closely, that data is not our standard. It's not our standard dictionary data, right? Because if it was dictionary, right, we would have first then would have a All right. So let's continue. Sorry about that. Okay, so like I was saying, if you look at what we are receiving here, right, it's not our standard dictionary, right? So if I copy this thing out and paste it on VS Code, then you see that what that this is a pedantic a pedantic structure, right? So because this is a pedantic structure, I cannot do this, right? I data, all right, and then I try to get what, and then I try to get first name, right? This will not work, right? This will not work, right? Because this is not what a dictionary. Okay. So now how do I get this information from there? What I can do is to use the dot notation. So basically dot a data dot first name. I'll do what I'll get that pedantic this particular value called test, right? So that's basically so we'll basically be using what this dot notation to do what to extract data from that pedantic structure. But then if you want to work with this man as a dictionary, right? You can do what you can always convert it. So like I said, if you look at something encoder, I can't remember though, but something JSON encoder. Let's say JSON encoder. I can't remember though, but it's just something JSON encoder in Fast API. Right. It just like it's a function that you can always that you can import and you know what, yes, JSON compatible encoder. So this will convert that pedantic structure to what to your native dictionary. So like what I say here, right? So it said that in some cases you may like to do what to convert a data type like a pedantic model, right? To what to something compatible with just like dictionary and list, right? So in that case, so because this is a pedantic data structure, right? So if you want to work with that structure as a dictionary or like as our native Python dictionary, then what you have to do is to simply import this man. So from past API.encoders, import encoder and JSON encoder, right? And then you do what, you wrap it up. So you wrap up that thing and you do what, I to convert it to what, to your native dictionary. It's that simple, right? It's that simple. But I'll not do it. Right. So you guys can always try that. Yeah, you guys can always try that. So what I'll do is I'll work with the dot notation, right? I'll work with that dot notation. Okay. So let's go back and let's continue. So now let's go ahead and let's add this data or this information to what, to our table. So to add to table, you know what we simply do was create the instance of that table with what alongside with the values for each for the table column, right? For each table column. So for first name, I'll have what? I'll have data dot first underscore name. I'm making sense. So the next one again will be what? Will be data dot last underscore name. So like I said, if this dot is confusing you, you can always do what? Convert to what to your native dictionary and then use square brackets and get it and extract those values from that structured data, right? So you can extract those values, right? So same thing again for email, data dot email, and of course the password. So this password needs hashing. Maybe we'll come back and do that hashing once we are done with all the with the CRUD, right? We can come back and 10 permits, we can come back and do that hashing. But for now, I'll save it as it is. But please never in your life save password as it is, right? Always hash it. So in data dot password. And that is the instance of what of our table. So I can assign this instance to a variable called new user, right? So new user now hold what? New user will now hold what? Will now hold the instance of that our table. So now what one that has been done, then the only thing that needs to be done is what is to do what is to use session to do what to add this thing to what to our table, right? Use session and do what and add this thing to table. So then I can simply come here and then say what and say session, and that session is coming from this man here, right? From that man. Remember, we received or we will be receiving the opened version of it, right? The open session. So now we now use that open session and do what? And we say session dot add, right? So dot add this add function is a special function that does what that add record to what to a table, right? That add a record to a table. So in this case, I'll simply do what I'll simply just say add this new user there, right? So because it knows that this instance is from the user table, so it knows that you want to add it to that particular table, right? So just do that and it knows, right? And the next thing again you want to do again is session dot commit. So once this has been added, you want to do session dot commit, right? Dot commit. And the next thing you want to do again is what is the session dot we want to refresh that table, right? We want to refresh that table, right? So that if a new request comes in, that new request can see that recently added record, right? So that is the whole point of now refreshing that table. So in this table here, it is what is this table here. So that is basically how you do what how you add items to a table, and that is all, right? So you create the instance, you add, you commit, you refresh. So at the end of it all, I want to return, right? So I want to return, but I want to return something that doesn't actually include. I can create a new data here, so I can say data. So at the end of it all, I could say response should be equals to what? So I want to return just the first name, just the first underscore name, So I would say data dot face name. So basically, I'll just copy this over. I think I'll just do it. So I want to return everything but except that man there. Data dot face name, and we'll have here that last name. Last name should be equals to not really equals, right? Should be equals to data dot last name, and the email here should be equals to what email, and then the data dot email, right? So that is basically what I would do. Okay, so to add a record to a table, right? We do what? We simply create the instance of that table, right? Where that information will do what will then carry the values for each column. So now when I'm saying when you want to add this record for column first name, add this data dot first name. For column last name, add the data dot last name. For column email, add data dot email, and for column password, add data dot password. And then after that, we do what? We add the instance of that table, right? Using session. So session dot add is like I'm booking you for what for to be transferred to what to the to be transferred to the actual SQL table or to the table at the database, right? So this is like add is like I'm booking you, right? So it's more like your Git commit, right? And then Git push now is like okay, oh yeah, go to the GitHub server. So it's same thing happens there, right? So Git add is like okay, I'm getting you ready for what to be moved away to the actual database. Well, so this Git add takes in the instance of that table. So normally we would have add this whole instance right inside here, but that will be too long. So now what do I do? And now assign this whole instance of this table right to a variable called new user, so that way it's easier for me to simply add new user as the instance, right? So this new user right now holds the instance of that table. So I simply say add this new user as this instance here, and then do what commit. So commit here means go ahead and do what and push to the database. So that record will do what will go ahead and be inserted to that particular table in the database. And then after that, we want to do what we want to refresh that record. So that just in case the next request that comes now sees the updated version of that table, right? With that new record that was just recently added, right? So that is just the whole point of refreshing. And then at the end of it all, you want to send out only the necessary part, which is what the first name, last name, and email. So at this point, I can just simply say return response, right? So return response. I can even add status here if I want. I can even come here and add status. Come here and add status. I can say success. Status should be success. Success, right? And then at the end of it all, I'm sending out this response out, right? So now this response here would be derived at where this function was invoked, right? That this response will be derived at where. So basically, once I invoke this function, I should get this response as the result, right? So that means if I go back to my router, because this function is being invoked here, right? If I should assign this to a variable response, right? It means that whatever this function now returns, I can do what I can simply just return. I can simply just say return that response now, right? So basically, what I'm sending back from that function is what I want to send out as the final response. Do you understand? Do we understand? Let's communicate now. Are we fully?
No, sir.
Sorry? No.
I said no, sir. Come again.
Okay. All right. So I should go about the entire adding of record again, right? Or do you have any specific points?
Yes, yes. Go back to the adding of this thing. Like, if
place I got confused was why are you using res? This response now. Yes.
Okay, rest here, right, is rest here is like a variable. I'm just assigning rest is a variable here, but I'm just saying that this is basically what I want to return, right? Once this record has been added to the database. All right. So at least the client that sent in this request should at least get something back as response, right? So here I'm just saying that I want to send out what this structured data, right, of that person's first name, that person's last name, that person's email, right? So normally I would just come here and to 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 to, to actually send this out like as structured as it is, right? With this response, sorry, with this return would be more difficult. So now, what do? I assign this to a variable called response. This thing here can be called anything, right? So I assign this to any variable. So I could just say this. Okay, this should be called result, right? And here I would just say go ahead and return this structured or go ahead and return whatever result have here, right? So it means that once I finish adding, this is what I want to send out to the client, right? So I'm now creating what I want to do was send out to client. So I don't want to send out everything, including the password. So I basically just pick some point that I want, like the first name, last name, and the email. I even added what status of success, and then do what sending out. So basically, I'm just sending out that result. So that result is more like it's a variable, right? It's a variable that holds this dictionary, right? So I'm just saying send out that result, right? And then because this function is being called by at the route, remember this function is being called at the route here. This is where that this is where this function is being called at this route. So here I'm now saying, and whatever this function is sending back, right? I want to collect it in this variable. This variable here, I can call it anything. I can call it A. So that means I have to do what just call it what A. So basically I'm saying whatever is being collected or whatever is being sent back from this function or from invoking this function, right? I want to collect that result or that value or that's whatever is coming back in the variable A, right? And then I want to do what set it out. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
No, sir. No.
I understood. I understood.
Okay. But if you don't understand, I can still go back. Sincerely.
No, no, I understood.
All right. Okay, Miss Summer, your hand is up.
Um, also, I just wanted to ask. So the router is serving as our app route, right? That is our endpoint route. So that
Yes.
means we can call up the response model, right? So like
Yes.
without our status, if we are calling up the response model as register out, and that register out is basically first name, last name, and email without password. And of course, the register is almost the same thing, just that it gives that one model. Then do we need to define that result again? Like
No.
if we just allow our crew to pass out new user, which obviously new user involve password too. When it gets to the route, right, we that response model handle taking off that password field for us.
Yes.
That's my
Yes.
question.
Yes. Yes. It will handle that. Yeah. It will handle that. So let's just do that real quick. It will handle that. So if I go to my schema, right, and add a response model, right. So here I'm just saying register out. So what is going out of this route? So if I just say this register out should basically be password and first name, last name, and email, right? And then I go back to my router. Sorry. So, okay, so I go back to my router and then I'll add a response model, right? So I have to bring in that model, right? I have to bring in that model to the router. That model to the router is available in the register out. So it's the same file that contains this register is the same file that contains register out, right? So just come here, copy this and add this here, right? And then go back to my route, sorry, to my CRUD, right? And then I'll just return, if I comment on all this man out, and then I'll just return and return what the new user. So that should filter out that password completely for us, right? That should and that should filter out that for us. So let's go ahead and let's see that. Okay, so let's compare this one. Okay. All right, so let's test it out. So okay. So if I send this should actually go through, and you see that that password has been filtered out. Right, the password has been filtered out completely. Right, but this is what we sent in, and this is what is coming out. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
All right. Okay? So I think there's a question on the comment side. Let me just check that out. So it says, must we create an entirely different folder for router? I can't just put router in the main. Well, like I said, this file structure is completely programmer dependent. Personally, for me, I feel this way is convenient, right? So I can have I can have as many files for each section of my program, right? So let's say for block now, I can come and have block .py, right? And block.py will handle all the routes that concerns what blogging, right? So that means in the future, if there is need for an update, I know which file I'm going to. But I don't have to go into like one single file that holds all the router, right? I'll be scrolling from me. I'll pass all the routes that contains user management phase, and then I'll not scroll. I'm gonna read the block. So I feel that this way is more convenient, right? So just know that if block is in router, that means that particular file what is specific to what to endpoint that relates to what to the block section of that project. But if there's a problem in the user management, and let's say someone tried to get OTP and OTP is not working, there's no point of me going to block and I'm searching for solution. I know it is. I'll go to user management, because the problem is if not from block, if the problem is not in the route of user management, then where else will I go? I'll go to CRUD, which I also have user management of CRUD, right? Same thing again as block as well. Same thing again. So basically, each section will have their own separate file in each folder, so that if once I move from route of user management, and I can't find a problem there, next place I'm going to what is the CRUD of same user management again, right? If I can't still find the problem there, I'll move again from there to the model of where of still user management and so on. And so basically, the thing just goes like that, right? The file just keep going like that. So it makes for me, and what I would also recommend that this way is more convenient. It helps you moderize your code, right? So if there's a problem, you can just go and solve it. Yeah, it's completely a developer's option. Okay, any other question? All right, so if you guys actually download, if you guys actually did download this, man, like I said yesterday, this DB browser, this stuff here, then if you open up that file, then you will see that that record that we just created actually was actually added, or was actually created to that database. Is available there, right? It's stored there. It is stored there, which we are going to actually retrieve it, and we see that that it actually is saved in there, right? So, but if you want to see that GUI of how that thing looks like, or how that tables look like, you can always do is download this stuff, this app here. So this app here, it is meant for viewing what SQLite database. Right? This app is meant for viewing SQLite database. So if you download it, then you should be able to see something like this, where you can see all the tables, right? So you just once you click on one particular table, you should see all the records that relate to that table, right? All the records that are available in that table, and so on and so forth. Okay. Any question pertaining to adding of item to table? Adding of item to table before we proceed to adding of items to table. All right. So the silence means that there is no question. We can proceed then. Okay, so now let's go ahead and see how we can retrieve. Right. So retrieving is not about us reading, right? So either we can get one thing or we can get multiple things, right? And let's just see. Let's see. let's see. So let's see how these things work. All right. So I'll go ahead and let's create a route for that for retrieving. Now since everything starts from route again, so let's go back and let's create a route. So this particular, maybe I would say get a user. So I'll just so it will be less, it will be almost the same thing, right? It will be almost the same thing with what we've done so far, just that the different statements for interacting with the database would differ. Okay, so for retrieving, I'll simply just say to get a, but let's say to get user to, let's say, to get user details. Okay, I'll say go to account slash user, maybe let us say user details. Okay, let us say user dash details. So to get a specific user detail, okay, where there are several ways that this can be done, right? So remember, if you are retrieving, right, you have to retrieve with something, okay? So there should be an wait that note that I had that I wrote down. Wait, so one thing about in fact from retrieving to updating to deleting, there should be a means of identification. You understand? If I want to retrieve something, I need to at least have a means of what I want to retrieve. So let's say I want to retrieve a user detail. I should at least have either that user email, and then I can know what I can get that user and the rest of that user detail, or at least I should have that user. Like there must be something that I can use to retrieve these things, because we can't just retrieve something out of the blue. Something must be used for that retrieving. So in this case, it's either what the email or the first name, the last name, whatever thing that you see fit, or even ID. ID can be used for this retrieving. So remember that our table has ID, right? So I can still use ID and do the retrieving. So any of these things, at least there must be one thing that we need to use and do the retrieving. Same thing happens with deleting. If I want to delete, there must be a means of identification. I can't just go and delete anything randomly. You give me something, ID, email, anything, something that I can use to know, okay, this is what I need to do to delete, right? Same thing with updating. If I'm updating, you give me at least something that I can use to know, because this is the record that I want that needs to be updated, and so on and so forth. Am I making sense? Are you following?
Yes,
All right.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So now having that in mind, so let's go and see how we can retrieve. So at this case, well, we can choose anything, right? But I will go with the most convenient way is what is going is using ID. For me, I would really love to go with ID, but I would really love to go with this user ID, because this ID can never repeat, because I can still go back now and add another record with this same detail, and nothing happens, except probably I had some other means of variations, like saying that I cannot create the same user with the same email, but so far we haven't added those kinds of variations, so we cannot even do that, right? So it means that this record can repeat as many times as possible. But then how do we uniquely identify which record is which record? So I would say using ID, because this ID would always be different, but we not really send out ID. So let's go back and let's send out ID. So at least we can use that to retrieve. So going back to our CRUD, because that's where everything is coming from, CRUD. So I'll come back to CRUD here, right? And I will just give ID. Okay, sorry, okay, let's go back to schema. I think it's schema that handles what goes out. So I'll give ID. So I would say ID should be available, and it should be int, right? So I think that ID will come from where it's coming from, this man, right? It's coming from that man, so it should be string. So let's go back and let's refresh. So that ID should now come out as well. ID should now come out now. Oh boy. Hold on. ID. Okay. Let's refresh our server. Let's go back and let's send again. Go back and let's send another request. So ID should now come this around. Right, so ID is coming. So you can see that the ID is now 2. If I send another request, the ID should be 3, right? So that ID is what is uniquely is used for unique identification. So you can say what the ID what is 3. So this ID keeps auto incrementing, right? That thing is done by what? By SQL model, right? So remember, I left us with the rule for align that to what to happen. First of all, that column must be optional and must be set as what as primary key, right? So those two things needs to be there, and then SQL model will take care of the rest, right? So that's basically what was happening. So in this case, we'll be using ID as a unique means of identification. So it means that if you want to update, delete, or get, simply send us ID, right? Simply send us the ID, and we can do what, and we can use that to retrieve. Right. So Fidelis, your hand is up. You have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, what if we want to delete a user information like this now? Will it affect the ID number?
Yeah, once you delete the user information, and what happens is that SQL model will I think it will reshuffle. Yes, so it will re-update again, and everything would go in order again, right? So everything would go in order again, right? So
So
it
let
doesn't.
me
It sorry.
let me say a user has an ID 3. Maybe
Okay.
the second user has an ID 2. Maybe you now
Okay.
deleted the first user, which is ID 1. You
Okay.
understand? So which ID will the second user now have, and which ID will the third user now
Okay.
have?
Their ID will still remain. I think it will still remain the way it is. I haven't really thought of that in my entire existence, but I think, personally, I think it should reshuffle, right? Well, I'm not sure. I'm not too certain, but I think it should reshuffle. So let's just try it and see. That let's try it and see. Okay, let's try it and see, right? Let's try it and see. Okay, this is what we will do to carry out that experiment. Okay, so we would so far we have about 3 users, right? With ID 1, 2, and 3. So what you do after we've seen how to retrieve, right? We'll see how to delete. Then after deleting, we go back and do what and retrieve again, and let's see if the ID will. So basically, we will see how to retrieve everything from the database, right? So we get everything. So we now see if the ID will do what, will auto arrange again, or they will still maintain their IDs. Do you get? But personally, I think that they should maintain its ID. It should not reshuffle. I think so. Because if I'm number 3, I should still remain number 3, uh, regardless of who leads your server. Okay, I'm just thinking, yeah, like logically, I'm thinking that is how it should be. But we'll chat that out, and then we'll see, right? We'll chat that out, and we will see. Okay, okay. So I think someone has just carried out that's illustration, and his own reshuffles. Okay, he said that it did not reshuffle, they still remain the same. So personally, so like I said, personally, like I said, logically, it should stay the same, because if I should be number 3, I should still be number 3, regardless of who leads your server, right? So I just think that's how it will be, right? So what will now happen is that when you now add a new record, right? SQL model will just carry the last record and give it the new ID to the new record. I don't know if you get. So SQL model will just go and look for the very last record ID, and then add one there and give it to the new record. So those other missing IDs doesn't really alter the whole ID thing. Logically, that's how it should be, right? Okay, so someone asking if I would be uploading this class and the one before. Yes, this both of them should be available. Both of them should be available. Okay. Any other question? So I think who has that question? So that is the answer to that question. They will not. Every other person will still stay the same, right? Every other person will still stay the same. Right, so the ID still remains as it is, or as they were, right? As they were. Okay, so okay, let's continue. Any other question? Any other question? Any other question? Any other question before we proceed? All right, so no other question. So let's see how we retrieve. So now, knowing that in order to retrieve, there must be what? There must be a means of what? Of identification. So now it's not your choice. How do you intend to collect this means of identification? Some people collect it via query parameter because it's a single value, right? It's a single value. It's not really a structured value. So you can choose to use path parameter. You can choose query parameter. You can as well choose body. It's like I said, it's still developer's choice. But to me, since it's a single value and it's not in a structured form, so that means it's not coming, it's not in a JSON form. There's no point of going through the stress of doing parenting. So I'll simply collect it in the path. I just attach it to the path. I will start it from there and do what and fetch that user. Okay, so that's basically what I will do. But if maybe in you guys' time, you guys can go and try out with body and query, and maybe header and so on and so forth, right? So like I said, all these are means of collecting data, right? So the most convenient way is what you just use. Right? The most convenient way is what you just use. So for me, I'll use path parameter to do what? To collect that means of identification. So it means that if you want to see a user detail, you somehow need to pass in what I would say ID at the end. All right. So ID at the end, ID, right? And here I would have ID as well. Okay. So this ID here is basically what you will pass in there, and from there this should be, I'll call this user detail, user underscore detail. Okay, and I'm collecting ID as path parameter, and I want to do what I want to do the same thing here again. So I want to get, so this one here is to get a single record. So here I would say get a single record. All right, read or get or retrieve. Whichever one. Get, read, retrieve. I'm looking for my pound sign. Pound. Okay. This one is get, or I could say retrieve. Could say read, right? A single record. Okay. So let's see. So now same thing happen again. I don't want to write that interaction here. So I would, since I remember this getting, all right, you see what is still going to interact with what with database, right? So that means I need my session. So I'll bring my session again down here, and I'll just paste it there, right? So this will be my ID that I will collect from the route, and this is my session that I will collect from dependency. Okay. And then what I want to do again is similar thing again. I'll create a function that gets a single user, right? So because I don't want to write that interaction here in the route. I want every interaction to the database to be in the CRUD. So what I want to do is I'll create another function that's a user. It should be equals to, I would say, get underscore user, right? And of course, this man should take in both the ID. This man will take in both ID and will take in what? Session, right? Same thing. So this, for now, this function is not available yet. And then at the end of this all, I want to return what? I want to return this user. Right. Return user. Right. So for now, this function is not available. We have to go and create it. Okay. So here I would say I will create it at the same location I have my create user. I'll create it there. So I'll go to that root, and I'll have my own function here. So I'll come down here and I'll create another function, and I'll call this get user function. So it should be def get user. So this one here takes in ID alongside what with session, because there will be an interaction, right? Okay, so now the interaction will now start there now. So everything is beginning to make sense now, right? So from CRUD to from route to CRUD, and then if need be schema and model. All right. So now where are we now going to carry out this interaction? So we still need this man again. So we still need session again, right? So we still need session again. Okay. All right. So interaction. The other interaction that we have, it's quite similar to adding. Or sorry, it's not. It's quite different from adding. As adding, you simply just create the instance of the table alongside with the values for each attribute, and then do what we simply say session.add, session.commit, session.refresh. But for this particular one, it will be different, right? It will be different. So this one is similar to SQL statement, but it's not actually SQL statement. Is what is our Python is normal Python instruction, right, in plain English. But then it want to look like SQL interaction. Okay, so let's see. Let's see. All right. So to get a single user, you simply just say, you simply just use session, because you're not. Okay. So like I was saying, since you are getting, right, since you are retrieving from database, you simply say session.get, right, and this get takes in what takes in two parameters. So first of all, it takes in the table. Where do you want to carry out this retrieving from? So in this case, the table is what is our user, which we've already imported up there. This table there. So you copy that table then and you give it there, right? And the second thing is that what do you want me is the means of what is the means of identification. So which value do you intend to use for this identification? Which value do you intend to use for this means of identification? So in this case, I would simply say get this user that has the ID of that of whatever is being passed down to this man, right? So that man they will do what we use that medium to retrieve that information, right? That man they will use that medium to retrieve this information, right? So it will go to this table, and then it will get any record that has the value that has this particular value, right? That has this particular value. Okay. So that is that, right? That is that. And then at the end of it all, I can just assign this to a variable for a user, right? And then I can just simply do what? I can just simply say return user. Okay? And that is that. Right? So it's that simple. So let's go back and let's test this out, right? So let's test this out and let's see if everything works as fine. So I refresh my server. Okay, and then we go to the postman, and I will copy this URL right here. Create another URL. For some reason my postman is angry. Hold on, please. I don't know. My postman is not responding. All right, now if postman is not responding, then let's see if this request will go through. So request still goes through. So let's just use this then. If postman is not responding, okay. So postman is not responding. So we use this. We still use that man there. Okay. So let's go back again. And so the route here is what the route here is user management slash user account slash user details slash the ID. So in this case, I could say ID of 3. ID of 3. So I'll come here and I would say register, and I would say account. I'll say ID of what? I will just say ID of one, which of course we should retrieve that data for us. So, but if you go back, I think something is missing somewhere. I feel like something is missing somewhere, but okay. So, okay, yeah. So please let's change this to get, please. Since we are passing this thing via the URL. Okay, so okay, it's on get already. So we are good to go. So let's go back and let's make that request. So change this to get, and then we will send this request. So it says detail not found. Okay, so I think this double slash here. So let's go back and listen again. So we now have that. So that is the information of that particular user, right? So you can see that that the ID has been retrieved, the email and username, everything about that user has been retrieved. Question about to get a single record is quite simple, right? It's quite it's very simple, right? It's very simple. That is very simple. All right. Now another thing is, so how do you get a sing, or how do you get how do we get all the record? Okay, so let's see. Let's make another route for getting all. So this is all part of retrieving. This all these routes that is here is also all part of retrieving. Okay, so all this route that is here is all part of, sorry, this is all part of retrieving, or you could say reading, right? Okay. Okay, so now let's see the route of what of getting all the available user, if need be, all the available user. So here I would just say go to all account slash all users. So this one is, since I don't need, since I'm retrieving everything, I don't need any means of what of identification, right? Because I'm retrieving everything. So basically I'll just go to this table and bring everything that is within that table, right? That's within that table. So here I would say get all underscore user, and same thing happens is that I'll just pass in the session, right? So for now, this function is not available yet. So this should now be users because it's coming out plenty. All right. Sorry guys. Sorry. I'm like blocks also. Like the blocks CD. Okay. Uh, just in case the one after the timer. The video shoot Korean movie. The video they shoot Korean movie. Very funny this bro. I didn't on communication. All right, so let's continue, please. Sorry about that. For some reason, I got disconnected. So let's see how you can retrieve all users, right? Let's see how you can retrieve all users. And because we're retrieving all users, we don't really need any means of identification. But then we need this session, because this session is what we will get, is what we will definitely use for the words to get all the record in that particular table. Okay, because there will be an interaction. So far we don't have this function yet, right? But we're going to create it. So we just go to our CRUD and we create that function. So going to our CRUD, we can create another function here that says get all users. And say get all users. So here will be def get all user, and this man here will just accept only session, right? Okay, and then at the end of it all, we simply just want to say users should be equals to what session. Okay, so basically, what I want to do is to use the exec function that so this will be a session. So this one will not be get, because get basically retrieve one single value at a time, But with what we want to do is we want to execute a particular statement, right? So in this case, we're using the exec statement. And basically what this exec does is that it takes in a certain conditional statement, or certain SQL statement, or some Python statement. So a statement like I can say, and let this be my statement, assuming let this be my statement, and here I could just say to select that we have to bring in a special keyword called select, which is used to select a particular table, and then execute a particular condition on that particular table. So that select needs to come from SQL model. So you need that man to bring it in. So from SQL model, everything wants up there. From SQL model, import select, and we simply come here, and then we want to say that we want to select the table user, right? Normally this select is used to construct a conditional statement, but for now we will not actually add any condition to this particular statement. We just want to select that table and then execute that statement, right? So basically we just want to select that particular table. We don't want to do anything. And then once we select that table, then we basically want to just return whatever has been selected, or we want to say return the result of that selection. Okay, so here I would say return users, return users, and that is that, right? That is just basically that. So let's go ahead and let's execute this man. Let's see if this man actually works, which I believe it should. So the endpoint here is let's with the endpoint. The endpoint where is okay? Endpoint is account slash select user. So this will do what this will get all the available user in the database, or this should select all available user, or this should bring all available user from that selected table, from the selected table. So if I should make this request, this should give me literally everything. Hold on. Let's see what is happening. Let's see. Please hold on, guys. It's not printing with what should be coming out. Yeah, getting. Hold on, please hold on, guys. Let's confirm that. All right. So I think okay. So something is actually missing, and that is the dot all, right? So we don't just select. We have to also implement the dot all, so that it brings everything from there. So instead of execute and then leave it there, then you simply need to add dot all. So this is missing from that command, right? So the statement is what is select this table and then bring everything from that table, right? So after selecting this, after executing the command of what, or the statement of what of selecting this table, I want to do what, I want to retrieve every item from that table. So the dot all is used to select every item from what from a particular table, right? From a particular table or from a particular statement. Okay, so that's basically what the dot all is meant for, and that is what was missing in our command. Okay, so we selected, but then we not specifically asked for all the items to be displayed, right? So now if I should execute this now, so you can see that we have a list of everything that we have in our database. So we have from ID 1 to ID 2 to ID 3 to ID 4. So that's basically how you retrieve all the information from your table. Now there's another kind of retrieval again, where you can retrieve with a condition, right? With a condition, right? So you can basically retrieve with a condition. So what I want to do is I will not create another route for that. What I will do is I'll just go and show you and show us how that is being done. All right. So now you said about that when we want to execute a particular retrieving, right? That is not a single value that we need to write and that we need to use what the exec command to do what, to execute a particular statement. So so this statement is what is basically the instructions with SQL model to do what, to know what to actually do, which in this case we are saying select this table, right? Which is the instruction, or which is the statement, and then what, we simply pass that statement to what, to be executed by what, by SQL model. So basically it takes this session, right? So this session uses this function to do what, to execute that, right? To basically select that particular table, and then once that table has been selected, we do what, we simply use the all to do what, to retrieve all the available data record from that table. But then what if we didn't actually want all the record? Let's say we wanted a specific record, say a record that contains a specific value. Let's say we want to retrieve every record whose first name, right, is, let's say whose first name is let's say which is our first name here, is test, right? Let's say we want to retrieve a record whose first name is test. Whose first name is test, right? Now, in that case, that is what a conditional selection, right? So it's not retrieving everything, but then it's retrieving things based on a particular condition. Excuse me. It's retrieving things based on based on a particular condition. That in that case, how would we go about carrying out that kind of execution? So the thing is that if you remember, I said that this select is mostly used for what to attach what a condition, right? So we can attach a condition to this select. So instead of saying select everything, the entire table, right? I can simply come here and say select the entire table that matches a particular condition, right? So now how do I add that condition? So to add a condition to this selection, you simply add dot where, right? So where is also another built-in function that we can use to do what, to pass in a condition. So now within this where condition, right, or sorry, this where function, we can pass in our condition, right? Our condition. So here I could say select this table where this table column, or where the record of this table column. In this case, I could say the user the first name, right, is equals to a particular value, right? So I could say only select the record whose value in the first name column matches this particular value, right? In this case, I could say maybe the value of, let's say, ABC, which in this case we don't have any value of ABC. So that means this man should do what? Should return an empty value, right? So we still need our all. Remember, this is a selection, right? So it means that the result is coming in a list, right? It's coming in a list structure. So whether it's empty or not empty, it's coming in a list structure. So here you're saying once you select it, right? Select everything, right? So all name means bring everything that matches that selection, right? Bring everything that matches that selection. So the same way we have all, we also have first. So first means bring the very first record that matches that selection. We also have last. Last also means bring the first thing that matches that selection, right? Same way we have all, right? All means bring everything that matches this particular selection, right? So here you're saying select this table, and in that table, check the first name column if it matches what this value called ABC, right? So our conditional statement can still come in here, right? All our conditional operator can come in here, right? And it can work, right? But the difference is that our and or cannot come in here, right? Our and or cannot come in here. So our standard Python and our standard Python and or cannot be used because this function here, right, is a function that is specific to SQL model, right? So it cannot come in here. So instead, our and in SQL model is seen as what is seen as ampersand, and or is seen as what is seen as this slash double these straight slashes, right? So this is or, and this is what, and this is and, right? So now if I should execute this now, this should give me an empty value because we don't have any value whose first name, right? Whose first name is what matches that particular selection. So if I should go back again and send this request, I should have an empty array, right? Because nothing is coming, right? An empty array, right? Remember, selection comes as far as I'm selecting, that it's coming in a list, right? So you must always add the dot all, right? You must always add as far as this is a select statement, right? This is coming in a list. So without the dot all, you cannot actually get the content of that list, right? So the dot all does what helps us to retrieve the actual content of that matches that particular selection, right? So if you want to retrieve everything, you do what you take away this condition, right? But then if you want to get things based on a particular condition, do what you attach a where and do what and set out your condition, right? And your and or is what is ampersand and these double slashes. Am I making sense? Are we still together?
Yes, sir.
So that's basically the different ways of retrieving data. So you can retrieve a single data. You can retrieve all data. You can retrieve a specific data that matches a specific criteria. Okay, Choma, your hand is up.
Okay. So you said something. You said that we are going to be making use of certain things that look like SQL keywords, SQL function, and you made introduction of the select and the where clause. So my
Yeah.
question is, what about group by? What about having? What about different kind of joins? In a situation whereby we need to return a record that is like an aggregate based on some certain grouping, how do we handle that? In a situation whereby, like, is it even possible for us to join two tables in MySQL model,
Yes, I
like
think it's
as
possible.
the
I
case
think
is
I think it's
different?
possible to join SQL two records. Yes, I believe. Yes,
Okay.
it's possible to join two records, two tables together. It's yes. Uh, but then I think that can be done in the model, right? Where because SQL support relationship, right? Where one table can be linked to the other table
That's
via.
what I want to do.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right. So it's possible, right? It's possible to actually do that. Because in when creating your model, SQL models they also support the standard they support the standard SQL relationships, right? So you could tie a particular table to another table via relationships. Okay, but I also believe that SQL model too should also support basically everything that pure SQL should support. I am certain of it. Right? I am certain of it. So if there is need to join a table, right? If there is need to join a table with SQL model, I am certain that there is definitely a function that does that, right? There's definitely a function that does that.
Okay, so where do we go to read up on this function? Like maybe we want to make aggregates by and group, right? We want to use group by and having, but want to
Okay,
use
so
it in SQL model. Like where can we go to have all this?
right, so SQL models, like I said in a previous class, has its own detailed documentation, right? So basically, everything about SQL model is available in this documentation. See, if you go to user guide, so this should give it literally everything that needs to be that SQL model is capable of doing. So you can create a table, you can create rows that add things, right? You can automatic ID, read data, filter data indexes, read one row, read a range of data, update the data, delete the data, connect table. So I think this is where the join comes in, right? So and this is like a drop down. So if you click on this drop down, this should give you all the security, everything you need. How to create a connected table, how to create and connect rows, how to read connected data, update data connection and remove data connections, and then we have relationships and so on and so forth. So this is basically everything that SQL model is capable of doing. Okay, and then if you go to the advanced features of it, I think it's just about just few things there: decimal number and UUID, right? So these are just a few things, right? So it may not be that powerful or that it may not be that heavy, or should I say contain literally every functionality of SQL, right? But I think everything has its own limitation, right? So, but look, let's check out SQL alchemy. I think SQL model was supposed to be like the simplest version of alchemy. Let's see if alchemy contains more things compared to the model, right? Okay, but then if it is need for any detail pertaining to this man, so this is where you get it. So this is where you get that. All right, so let's see. Okay, so if I think this man should have literally everything. Hey, all right, so that is coming up. Okay, so for all users, I think this is it. So this man should contain literally everything. So this man should be to contain literally everything compared to the SQL model. Right. I'm just thinking. Right. If you come here, so you say that concept of okay. So first we must score centric approach and then spanning out the more oriented centric concept. So I think this is basically well, all of them still look smaller. So this is basically everything for SQL alchemy. All right. This is basically everything for SQL alchemy. So establish okay, this is it. Okay. So this is that. So well, it happens that maybe the exact thing that you need, escape alchemy may not actually offer it, but there's also a means where you can write pure SQL, right? So if these people doesn't really do the trick, and you're good with SQL itself, then what you could do is there is a library that converts SQL that allows you to write your SQL inside your Python script, right? So you can write your SQL inside that Python script it will just process it, right? Then you can go down that route. So instead of coming to create those classes for table, you can actually write out the actual SQL command, right, for creating tables and all those stuff. Make sense?
Makes sense, but what's the library name?
Okay, so let's find that one. Let's find that one out. Can't remember that library name. But this is how we go about researching or finding that library name. This is what you will search for. Search for writing. Search for writing SQL in Python script. In Python script. So this should give us something. This should give us a lead. That should take us somewhere. This should take us a lead. Yeah, that will take us somewhere. What is all this ones? Not interested, my bro. All right, so writing. Okay. Okay, so okay, so this one still remains. Okay, so this is basically what you do. So this is basically what you will do. You have to actually import. You need to install some things though. And first of all, you need to install a MySQL connector for Python, and or you install this man for Postgres, or you install this man. This man is inbuilt by default, so you don't even need to install it. So simply you import it, right? And then you connect to your database in a Python way, and then you use that connection to do what to execute the cursor. Now this cursor allows you to do what to execute your SQL command, right, and fetches the result. So once you now do that, now you now use this cursor and this variable, right, to execute your SQL command. So this is basically what you do, right? So when you use the cursor dot execute, you use multi-line string, right, so that you can have room to type as many as this multi-line string is to give you room, right? Is to give you room for what for a multiple line of string, right? So multi 1, 2, 3, and then so you can tap in and then you can write in your SQL code, right? So that's basically why they are doing that multi-line there. And then that cursor will do what will execute that part. That cursor there will do what will execute that where is it? That cursor there we do what we go ahead and execute that raw SQL command. So as you can see here, this is a raw SQL command for creating table. This command here, right, is similar to what is the same thing as us doing this class, this thing here, with that table. Same thing as us doing this, right? This thing that we've done here, this is a similar command in SQL, right? So this is it. So this is basically what you would do, right? And you will have everything in control, right? You basically have everything in control, right? You have everything in control there. So here you can control your raw SQL yourself. That's if you already have if you're already familiar with what we'll be writing SQL. I'm making sense.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so that's basically what you would do, right? That's basically what you would do to have full control, right? So these models are, I think that they're basically for basic usage, right? Like CRUD, right? Like CRUD. But then if you need more data manipulation, that is more heavy, right? That requires you to write your pure SQL. or SQL, right? You just follow this route, right? So this is what you need to do, right? So like I said, this one here is pre-built, so you don't have to actually install it. So you just import it and you start using that cursor. But if you if your database is Postgres or MySQL, then you have to do what you have to install any of this man, right? You have to install any of that man, right? So that you can import it and use it and do what needs to be done. Okay. Any other question? Any other question? Any other question? Any other question?
We've been looking at get. Can we look at like maybe retrieving through a post this thing like in the situation of logging, whereby we have to like read from the database first and then try to match, like let's say if, because we'll be getting the details from the front end, maybe as at that point they don't know what the ID is, they just know the user's email and password. And now we're trying to match the email and password first before we can allow that user to log in. I don't know.
Okay.
Even if you're not able to write the code, maybe explain.
All right. So let's see that. Right. So retrieving. Right. So that's standard retrieving. So far what we've done. Let's see what we've done so far. So far, the only thing we've done is more like getting via a specific ID, right? So let's assume that the data around like, okay, let's go ahead and write the logic of login. So let's go back again to our route. Right? So let's go back again to our route. So we have login route somewhere. So this is the login route where user needs to log in via email and password, right? Via email and password. Let's see our schema for handling that email and that login. So the schema is what? Email and password, right? So let's go ahead and let's see. So going back to our route. Okay, going back to our route. So let's go ahead and let's retrieve this man. So because we are going to interact, so that means we need our session again. So I'll copy our session. I'll take it to login. Let's go to login. We need this man here. Login. Okay, we need this man here as well. So comma. All right, so we have our detail there. We have our session there for retrieving. Okay, so here we can do what we can simply here is to get token for login, right? So I would create a function called get underscore token, right? So to get a token, you have to do what to log in with your email and password, and that has to be available in our how do you call it? That have to be available in our database, right? But so far, I think email and all the email and password are almost the same. So we just pick the first one, right, and assume that is who you are. Because if you are gonna, if you were using email and password for login, then by default we shouldn't have the same email repeat itself, right? We shouldn't have the same email repeat itself. But there's no issues. We are still gonna work with it. Okay, so this man will do what will collect this detail, so I can use it to check if this detail actually exists, right? So I'll get this detail, right? Okay, so this should be detail, right? And I'll get the session. So pass the session there. Okay. And what again? So this token, you need to go and create it, right? Get token needs to be created. So I'll go and comma, paste it there, and then go to our group, and then we will paste it down here. So this will be dev. Paste it here, and then session. Okay, so this man takes in both the detail, both the data and session, right? Both data and session. Remember, the data there is what is the logins, right? The email and the password. And then basically what you want to do now is what is to carry out the check, right? Is to carry out the check. Okay, so first of all, you want to do this kind of check, right? You want to do this kind of check. So I'll copy this man. So I would say the statement is what is to select a table, this user table, where user.email right, is equals to data.email. Remember, this data, remember everything that is coming from front end, right, is in pedantic structure. That, but then if you need to actually work as with it as dictionary, that needs to be converted, right? But then I'm not converting, so I'll still work with the dot, right? So the data.email. So I'll check. I'll say, well, select this table where user is that, right? And then I'll just come here and check if user. That means if there is something there, right? If there is something, that if there is an item in this user, sorry, this if there is an item in this user. So this if user means that if you execute this instruction and there's an item there, so that means there's a user that matches that email, right? And then probably I can use an as well. I can use an as well. So I can also use an ampersand and user and user dot password equals to data is equals to what, data dot password. Okay, so that means like I need a record where the email and password are the same, right? Why is mine looking like an error? So I think this is a single ampersand. Please, not double. Double is for JavaScript. Sorry, please. This is single, not double. So basically, get me check. Okay, select this table and get a record where the email is equals to the email that was typed in, and the password is equal to the password that was typed in, right? So if it's available, right? If it's available, I can just do what? I can just simply generate the token here, right? So here I could say generate token. So here I can generate the token, right? So here we just generate that token here. So, and you guys already know how to do that. But for here, I'll just assume that this token is equals to this, right? And then I'll just do what? I'll just return both the ID. Okay, I'll return both. Okay, I'll just say response should be equals to the token, right? Should be equals to token, and the type equals to, sorry, it should be equals to what, bearer. Abi? Right, and then after that, I'll simply return. I'll simply return the response. Okay, and then else I'll just raise an HTTP exception. All right, so somehow bring this man here. Just say from fast API import HTTP exceptions, and here I'll just raise it. Right, so here I'll raise HTTP exceptions, and I'll give a status code of give anything, just 404. Okay, right. So that's basically what you need to do. I think that's all. Yeah, that's all. That's basically all. Okay, so we filter and we check if it's available, right? So we want to check if there's something there, right? If this filtering work, if there's something in that filtering, then I'll just do what? I'll just get that token generated, right? So in this situation, I want to get the first one because this man here is going to be like we have the same email and same password multiple times, right? So I don't want to get the first one, right? You have to get the first one, but by default, or if you want to use this for login, then email and password shouldn't really be repeating them. Sorry, email should not really be repeating itself. Either it's meant to be used as login. Okay, so let's refresh and let's check this out. Okay, so we go to account/login, I think. So you go to route. Let's say route is account/login, and here we go to account/login, and this should be post, and the body here should just be email and password, right? So email and password, and then if I send, this should now go through. Internal error. So that means there's problem with our code somewhere. So it says that it says unsupported operand type and okay. Please hold on. Let me confirm something, please. Please hold on, please, guys. Hold on. Let's see. Hold on. Well, hold on, guys. That is correct. Why did train an error? Okay, let's something. Let's replace it with actual and. So the problem is from our crude. So you can see it's even easier to even predict where it's coming from. This is and let's see if that works. I don't think it should work though, but let's just see. Let's send this again one more time. All right, sending this again. All right, so it works. We're having hello world, which okay, which is so. Please, okay, please, I take back those previous explanation, please. So the and still remain as and all still remain as all, right? So and still remain as and all still remain as all, right? And not the other way around. Right, so both of them still remain as they were. And if where we are having hello world is because the router we are returning hello world. So instead of this thing, right? So if I should come here and say response should be equal to this, and then I return response instead. This should now give me the response and not hello world. Right. So if I should refresh this now, you can do what you can simply come again here and right. So we now have our token there. Question. So let's look at delete. Probably I can just show us how delete is done, and then we can go and try it out. Delete is a session dot delete, and update is similar to what we've done before, right? So you just collect the new thing that you need to update, and then you do what you assign those value. Am I making sense?
No,
Are we together?
no.
All right, so for updating, right? Normally, so like I said, there are easier way to do these things, but I said that in this particular bootcamp, I want to only stick to what to post and get, right? So for updating, if someone wants to actually update, right, the person needs to fill in. Let's say someone can let's that is let's just do it so you can just go and rest, right? I think I've dragged this class longer than it should. By special grace of God, I don't know how we do for deployment, but we shall deploy when the time comes. All right, so let's where are we? Let's go to router. So everything always start from router again. So router, and I want to get update this details. So for updating of details, basically I want to updating of details. Well, the updating also need a means of identification, right? Because we wouldn't really be updating anything uh, except we know what we are actually updating. So in this case, we can collect a means of identification, right? We can collect a means of identification. Uh, let's see. Looking for the most convenient way to pass that information. Please hold on. Let's see. Update. Let's see. It'll be easier the other way, but I don't want to do that. All right, let's let this. Okay, so let's assume that somebody wants to update their like what they've logged in before, right? Something that they've logged in. Now the easier way for us to do this is to just update those values in that session, right? Is to just update those values there in that particular in is to just update those values in
Hello everyone. Can anyone hear me? Please, I want to confirm if you are done. Oh,
I don't think we are done. We'll just kick out.
oh, okay.
Oh, are we there? Are we there? Can you guys hear me? All right, so let's wrap this up immediately. Okay, because we are already exhausted. Okay, so like I was saying, for the updating, so let's assume that someone needs to update his query, his details on the let's assume that someone needs to update his details on 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 the database. Say someone whose ID, okay, let's say someone whose ID is one. So that we'll collect the ID alongside with uh let's also assume that this person did not actually know his ID, because by default most of us don't even know our ID on Facebook is a database. Or we simply just go and do what and update our profile. So basically what we'll do is that we will create a URL that will collect almost the same thing as, in fact it will collect exactly the same thing as register. So I'll copy this man, right? I'll copy this man. But this time around, it's going to be updating, right? So instead of adding, it will update. I don't know if you get, but don't worry, I'll show you that. So basically, this is what I mean. So when we get to our, where are we? This should be okay. This is for updating. So account of update user, update user, update dash user. Okay. Then basically what we want to do is we want to still collect that same data as user reg, right? Alongside with our session. Basically we have a function that says update user, update underscore user, right? And this man here collects both the data, collect reg and session, right? And then at the end of it, we print out a user. Okay, so let's go back and let's bring in update user. So it be almost the same thing as sign up, right? As creating, but it's around will be updating. Okay, so I will do this, right? And then go back to my CRUD and we create a function that will update. So def a function that updates user, and this man will take in both the data and session, right? And then at the end of it all, now what we want to do is similar to what we've done here, right? So we want to look at this man. So copy this man and edit. So the statements here would be to select this user table where email matches this email. So I'm assuming that I want to filter that user by email, right? I'm assuming that the email is the unique identifier here, right? The email is the unique identifier here. So when I select a user that owns that email, right, then I get it, right? So I'll select it out from the list. So the face here means remove it from the list. The all will bring it as list. The face will extract it completely from that list. So it will come out as a single value. Okay. Then from there, I can just simply do one. I can just simply say if, so I can check if users, right? If user. So this should be, I want this to be user, not user, because this is a single user, right? So the first will bring me one single user, right? So if that user, if this user that owns that email exists, right? Then what I want to do is to update that field again, right? So I'm assuming that, whatever is coming in with updated version. So I will just simply say let the user dot first name, right? Dot first name be equals to data dot first name, right? So I want to replace whatever first name is coming in, because here we are I'm assuming that everything that is coming in is basically like everything is coming in alongside what with the updated version, right? That's basically what I'm looking at here. So I'll update everything here. So user dot first name and user dot last name, the duplicate, this should be duplicate. So this should be last name, duplicate, last name, and this will be email. Maybe the person may also want to update his password, so I'll also give room for password, right? So duplicate, and this will be password. Depending on any of the field that is actually, I will do what that will take effect, and then after that has been done, I'll do what I will now simply add, right? I'll now simply add. But at this point, this adding here is not really required, right? But it's just safe to just do it, but it's not actually required. So basically, what you just do is to commit and refresh. That's all. But you can choose to add. You can choose to add this session. Dot add, right? So you can choose to, but for me, I will just take it out, right? But it's actually safe if you want to do it. If you want to do that, right? So you can do that. But for me, I'll just commit, right? So I'll just commit. So I'll just say user dot commit. It should be commit, right? So I want to commit those changes, and I want to do what? I want to say user. Sorry, this should be session. This should be session, please. This should be session and not user. So the commit here, and this should be session. Also, I want to refresh. And what I want to refresh here is what is the user. Okay, so I think that is basically all. Okay, and then at the end of it all, I can choose to send out this user, right? So I can return the user, right? And that is all. Else, I'll just raise HTTP exception here. Okay. So if I try to get that user with that email and I cannot find that user, then I would just enter an error saying that that user cannot be seen. Right, so this is where the updating of these fields happened, right? So whichever, this should be last. This should be last. So whichever field gets updated, no problem. That update will just take effect on any of them there, right? So that update will just take effect on any of them there. So okay, so that's basically all, right? That's basically all. So let's go and let's try this out. So okay, one more thing is I want to go to my I want to use this response model too, because I don't want to send out the password after the update has been done, right? So I can just come out here and add this man, response model, and I'll just add that man. Oh, okay. All right. So let's go and refresh and let's test it out. Refresh this man and go back to our CRUD. But then before that, let's get the URL update user. So account.update user, and this account is basically sending in almost the same thing that we use in registry. Right? But this time around, we're sending with the updated version. Right. So this should now go to account dot register slash update user. So if I should update my user for test to, let's say, to updated test, this should not take effect. Right? This should not take effect. All right. So that name they should now be updated to that. So if I should not send, if I don't send this request, so I now have updated user. So even if I try to get a single user with this ID, this name still remains, right? That name there will still remain. So let's go to the where I can get a single user by ID. So I'll go to account / get user detail, account / get user detail. Then I'll get user detail of the ID of one. This should be a start account. Then this should give me that's the updated user there should still remain, because that has been updated. So you can see that what we still have our updated test, right? So that is basically how you update information in database, right? That's basically how you update information in database. And so quickly, let me just cover up the delete, and then that will be all. So to delete is simple too. So for deleting, we also need a means of identification, right? For deleting, we also need a means of identification, and then we simply just say session.commit and .delete, and that will delete that out. Okay, that would delete the record with that particular ID. So same thing. Let's see the list as it is. So maybe I can just repeat this man here. So this will be account _ this is updating, and this is deleting, deleting. And I'll just paste this man there. So account / delete user, delete dash user. Okay, and the ID will stay there, and I'll pass both this one to the function called delete user, right? So I'll pass both the ID and the session to delete user. I'll go and import it, and then I'll go and do what? Create it. Include. So delete user. I'll say def deleting of user, and this man takes in both the let me look at the router again. Delete user takes in ID and session, right? So let's go again. Man takes in ID and session, right? And then what I want to do now is to see how do I get a single user. So to get a single user, so I'll fetch the user that owns that ID, and then I'll just say delete. So I'll just say colon. So get this man, get, and then I would now come here and say if user, right, if there's user with that ID, then basically what I want to do is what is session dot delete, right? Session dot delete. I want to delete that user, right? And then after that, I want to make that changes to be permanent. That's commit. Session dot commit, right? And that would get that, and then here I could just return a here I could just return a response of say status, and here I could say okay, so deleted has been done. All right. Else I will just if I can't find the user with that ID, I will just raise an HTTP exception, and that is basically that. So that's how this is being done. And I refer this man, and I'll go back to my router again so I can get the URL. So account delete user ID. So if I should go back to my this man, so that should give us ID of 1. So if I put 1 here, then this one is this ID is this user that has this updated text as first name. So if I should try to send this now, so it says no. I think that because we did not actually return anything. So but then that response did went through. That response did went through. So if I go back to my CRUD says this is my CRUD. Go back to CRUD. Right, so we did not return. So that is what is happening. We did not return, but that response went through. So if we had returned, then we have gotten this. So return response. So that's we would have gotten this status okay. So since nothing was sent back, it's now showing null. But then if you now try to view all users, I think there's a URL that views all users. We should no longer have that. We should no longer have that user with that name updated text any longer. So if I should go to all user accounts like all user, and let's confirm that all user function is still intact. All user. So all user, okay, all user. Let me just take this off for now. Okay, or maybe I can just duplicate this. All right, and then I will comment on one out. Okay, and then I will just take this out. So select this table and then get everything. All right, so let's refresh our server. Okay, let's get our URL again. Okay, going back to our postman. Sorry, I know you guys are extremely exhausted, but we're done. Okay, so if I make a get request now, this should give me all the users with no updated. So you can see that ID 1 is no longer available. We're now starting from 2 to 3 to 4. Right, so that's the only thing that we now have. Okay, so that is that about CRUD. It's a base. Almost all the interaction are almost the same. Just few difference in how the session is being used, right? But then every other thing remains the same. Question. That's if you are still on this call, or if you never leave me behind with that. Question. Question. Okay, show me your hand is up.
No, I noticed you didn't.
I didn't do what?
User. Is it that we don't need to refresh after deleting?
Well, you can And you can choose to do that, but it's not actually required when deleting, right? So same way how adding is not required when updating, right? So you can it's optional. So it's not required. We can choose to if you want to. Okay. It's okay.
Yes, it is.
All right. Any other question? Any other question? All right, guys. So please, let's cut it down. We've almost spent almost 3 hours, right? And I think scientifically, he said that studies should not pass 2 hours. Okay, but we've validated science. So please, I want us that we
Sam,
take time. Yeah. Question.
yeah, no, I'm waiting for you to finish so you can start with the deployment and documentation.
Sorry.
Deployment and documentation. You said you're going to do it today.
No. It's not me to do. Not me to do. We are all tired. Please, let's not do it today. Maybe we can do it tomorrow, or well, definitely we'll do it before you guys officially start that capstone project, right? Those two things, the deployment and implementation shouldn't really take up to 30 minutes. Is to deploy is about let's just push everything to Git, and then you go to super base and create accounts and you deploy. You're good to go. So deployment and that should not really take auto. So maybe we can reschedule another time. This one we've spent 3 hours and we shouldn't stay longer than that. Please. We shouldn't stay longer than that. Okay, so please we have to come up with a new time to do that. And we will look at that soon, Barry. We'll look at that soon. I'll communicate them. All right. Any other question? Any other question?
Please, in your CodeCamp tax, the first tax, you said something about you didn't ask us to make use of database for users. You said we should store login credentials in user.json.
As
So
backup,
I don't know. Eh?
backup, as backup. Please, that tax required database, please. That tax.
You didn't put that as backup now.
I thought
That's what I was asking. You didn't.
please.
There was no
Any
statement
file,
there to
any
users.
file like any file you're suing there is for backup, right? But database is the actual thing. Please, please. I forgot. If it's not
Wait,
there, then if it's not there, then it might have skipped my head. But please, and that's those tags. It requires database. So please, you guys have
okay.
to use the database. Yeah.
That's just only for the JSON file, right? They are as backup because definitely the log file. There's no way we can put that in a database now. That is for
You
the
know,
middleware.
no. The login is going to be a text file. So basically, you have a text file, you have a database file, two different files, right? So you do the actual storage in database, right? So only put that part, like just login credentials in both the database and the file. So, but the file will act as well as backup just in case anything goes wrong in the database. I don't know if you get the point. So the two things
Okay.
the two things are working. Yeah, both the database and the file, so it is working. So don't put the file in database. The file is separate. The database is separate. Just save them separately there.
Okay.
Right. Any other question? Okay, so the silence means no other question. Please and please and please do have a productive day and try as much as you can to wrap up the task, right? So I can just wait and get us ready for capstone project, and then whatever the case is, I'll let us know when to look at that deployment. Deployment is not a big deal. It's not, in fact, it doesn't require coding. It's just how to deploy on these deployment services, right? So just to walk you through how you can actually do that. It's not as if we won't writing any code in deployment. All right, Osato, your own is up.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to just confirm the deadline task
Sorry?
from the other ones. I wanted to confirm the deadline for the task because it's seeming different
You
from
want to
the other
compare
ones.
what?
Like the deadline task.
Right. Osato, you were asking question. You said that you want to confirm what?
The deadline for the task.
The deadline for the tax.
Yes, it's a little different from the other tasks we have done so far. I don't know whether that was an error or it's actual today, because like today, this night is the deadline. It's usually Saturday night. You want to confirm that it's actually today, not Saturday night.
Yeah, this particular tax is a special tax, so it finishes today. Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure. But let me just confirm that time again, please. So just hold on. I'm certain that it should be today. Let me hold on. Let me see something. Where's CodeCamp? Hold on. CodeCamp. Hold on. Mm, tax. Hold on. Yes, on the 29th of August, 11 p.m. West African time. Yes, it's today.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other question? Okay, please, guys. Let's have a productive day ahead of us and try and wrap up our tasks and submit it. Okay, so we can get ready for capstone. See you guys in your wonderful project phase. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.